everyone. David McLeod here, your life mastery coach and author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 212, and we're calling this Meditation Magic. Now, you probably noticed that my background is a little different than usual. I could not log in on my regular computer for this show. I don't know what's going on, but some kind of technical glitch. So I'm using my secondary computer for today. And as you can see, the background is not that great. So I apologize in advance for that. Anyway, here we are, starting a couple of minutes late, and I apologize for that. But we're going to have a really great conversation anyway. Now, meditation is a subject that I have promoted in a variety of ways in past episodes and in past offerings that I put out. And given the mountains of support that come from scientific research about meditation, I think it's probably time that we had another in-depth discussion about it. Now, I've heard people exclaim things to me like, how can sitting still with your eyes closed for extended periods of time have any possible benefit? You're not actually doing anything. Well, I guess on one sense they're right, but ironically, what these people don't realize is that they're actually answering the question for themselves. It turns out that doing nothing is surprisingly good for you, especially when you're doing nothing with a sense of intended focus. So for one thing, meditation has been shown to reduce stress, specifically by helping to lower cortisol levels in the body. And since elevated levels of stress are well known to cause all kinds of health problems, and indeed, stress has been implicated in some of the most extreme health conditions we know about. Well, any form of stress reduction has to be helpful. And if doing nothing contributes to that reduction, it seems sensible to at least give meditation a try, don't you think? Well, for this episode of Life Mastery TV, my friend and colleague Debbra Lupien, a spiritual teacher, author, and voice of the Akashic Records, decided to honor me by returning to the program to discuss this topic with me. And as someone who has stumbled into being something of a meditation expert, Debbra has learned some amazing things about meditation that she plans to share with us. So please join me in welcoming Debbra Lupien to the program. Welcome, Debbra. Please come back on camera, and I hope we can still hear you. It's wonderful to have you back on the program again.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here. Great to see you and everybody here.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good lineup of folks. And just a reminder to all you who are here on the live show, please feel free to share your perspectives, your questions, your comments in the chat on the left side of your screen. And we will do our best to address those as we progress. So tell me a little bit about this part of your journey where you kind of stumbled into meditation.
Yeah, well, a number of years ago, I encountered the Akashic Records and I was listening to Abraham Hicks. You probably all know Esther Hicks. And I was listening to this episode where Abraham said, you too can channel. And their whole motto is spend 15 minutes a day just sitting quietly. So I said, okay, I'll try because I was wanting to explore the whole metaphysical, spiritual side. So I did that. And voila, all of this has unveiled since. And now I'm channeling Archangel Metatron. We're writing books together. And then I go on TV and I talk about meditation. I'm writing more books about meditation. I didn't know that's what I was going to be doing. So the journey, once you open the door to this whole spiritual awakening thing, you don't know where it's going to take you. And that's the exciting, magical part. Because I thought I was just reading Akashic Records for people. Yeah, I am doing that, but it's so much more. So a little more than a year ago, Metatron challenged me to commit to 21 days of meditation, just 15 minutes a day, because I will confess I don't regularly meditate, even though I do readings and I channel for people all the time. I just don't do it for myself, which I know I, quote, should be. So I said, okay, we'll do that. So I did this 21-day meditation. And as we got about 2/3 of the way through, it was like this big light bulb went on. Oh my gosh, I have been asking, how do I teach people to channel? Because everybody does it differently. So how do you quantify it, right? This book is how you teach people to channel. He put it in the book because I recorded my experience going through this day by day, the days when I showed up and nothing happened. And I said, well, I'm here. What are you doing? The whole point of the exercise is for you to commit and show up. Okay. So
Right?
it went like that. And following that path, then I put the book out there. We did a beta group of the 21 days together. And it was stunning. I had no idea of the brilliance that Metatron had set out for us. People who showed up said, I can't meditate, I can't channel. Some people in 3 days were channeling and posting
Mhm.
messages. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so magical. And then by the end of it, I think pretty much everybody, at least the ones who were talking to us, was channeling. And now they're just not shutting up, you would not believe. So we have this Facebook group where they're sharing some of the things they're
Right.
getting. And even more than that, it extended again because there's a lot of concern for Gaia. So one group has set aside daily time to talk with and heal Gaia. So they're off branching off from this journey that started here. And I don't know
Now,
how to.
wait, now hold on. You can't just flash that book and then hide it. Put it back there so we can see it. All right. So what does it say? The path to hearing angels and guides,
Yeah,
21 days of meditation. Awesome.
because
And
it
that's
opens.
available on Amazon, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It opens your channel just by sitting there doing that 15 minutes, allowing it to evolve. Now, it's more than that, of course, because through the 21 days, you're going to learn the things that block you. One of the things that blocks people is that they have this preconceived notion about what meditation should be. Let all of that go. People say, I can't visualize. I don't have that ability. Well, if you can daydream, and I think everybody can, you can visualize. A meditation can be like a daydream. So when you release and allow that, just go with the journey, see where it takes you. We're not talking about the kind of meditation where you sit and do Om and have no thoughts. That's really hard. You've got to graduate to that level. This is how you get started. You just allow your angels, your guides, your teachers to interact and share with you. And the wonderful thing, David, is they will bring you movies. They will bring you things that look like Disney movies sometimes and all kinds of wonderful things. When I'm channeling, sometimes they'll bring music. They're very adept at choosing just the right song. Somebody on my Saturday call, I do a monthly gathering where I channel for people, wanted to know what she should expect in Minnesota for the weather. And I started hearing, get ready, get ready, get ready, because here it comes.
Right.
How perfect. They'll just select the right thing and then I share it with somebody. So yeah, they're funny, they want to interact with you. And all they're asking is for you to just set aside a little bit of time, connect with them.
Right. Yep.
Now,
Yep.
one more thing that blocks people, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I was going to say something. So here's, I just put the link to your book in the chat there. That's what I was doing. I was off looking at my Amazon so I could get that link for you. And yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in what you said. The idea that it only takes 21 days to get good enough at meditation that you can start learning how to channel. I think that is a really powerful and wonderful piece of awareness that I wasn't aware of personally. I mean, I've had my own experience with channeling, but it hasn't happened in a controlled or disciplined way. It's kind of been more every once in a while, I'll just hear something and I'll, write it down. And every once in a while, I'll also sit down and actually listen. So I have a slightly different set of plans, but I like this idea of the 21 days meditation challenge, because who can't do something for 21 days? I mean, really,
Yeah.
especially when it's only a 15-minute commitment every day. So that sounds like a pretty good plan. And yeah, it sounds like you've had some pretty amazing results. So I'm really impressed.
Yeah,
So
and
tell
you
me
know what?
more.
The funny thing is, I was thinking about creating a course to teach people how to channel. You don't need a course. You need this little book. And in 21 days or less, you're channeling. It's so wonderful. What I was about to say earlier is one of the other things that blocks people is they're afraid. They're afraid if I just connect and channel, who am I getting? Maybe it's something dark. So that's taken care of in this book. There is an opening and closing prayer to the Akashic Records. So before you start your meditation, you do the opening prayer. You are now connected to divine. You are safe, you are loved, and it's all truth and light. So there's nothing to
Yeah.
fear. And when
Yeah,
you release that fear,
right. I'm
then the
glad you
magic
brought
happens.
that up because I remember when I first started looking at meditation, I was probably in my 20s. And I remember my mom was really afraid of meditation. She had a story in her head that this was the devil's work. You got to be careful and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of, even though I didn't really believe what she was saying, I noticed that it did have an impact on me, and it did inhibit my willingness to meditate. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because the idea of having an opening prayer that I assume that the prayer has something to do with creating a loving surrounding of protection against any dark forces, and only allowing in something that is motivated by love. I
Yeah,
assume that that's something along the line of what you're doing. And
yeah.
I assume then that once you go into the meditation process, you're staying kind of wrapped in that cocoon of love, and then receiving whatever you receive, and then perhaps sharing it out later. Now tell us a little bit about the closing prayer. What's that like?
The closing prayer is just very short, thanking the team that helped you and intending to close your records. But I'll tell you a little secret, I never close my records. I was taught in the beginning you're supposed to close them because if you don't, you're going to be connected to that energy and you might be a little spacey. I kept forgetting. And so I started wondering because they're constantly teaching me things. Maybe there's a reason I'm forgetting. So I had a conversation with Metatron and he's like, why would you want to close them? Why wouldn't you want to be connected all the time? And
Exactly.
truly, now after all this time, I really feel like I am here walking through life holding Metatron's hand. So I don't need protection. I got my transformer here.
Transformer, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really wonderful, and I'm glad you have shared this. So that's how people can get a hold of the book. Do you have a separate program that maybe gives them a free taste of what they can get?
Oh yeah, if they go to my website, akashaunleashed.com, I've got a whole bunch of meditations there. There's one in particular that would be really useful. It's called Connecting with Guides. That one was a download, and the specific purpose is to take you into this relaxed state, and then you go to this beautiful clearing in the woods, and your angel guide, whoever, and it could be a departed loved one too, by the way. You call them forward, you meet them, don't get all worked up about what they should look like because they might be kind of fuzzy, soft focus. It's okay. Whoever shows up, you have a conversation with them. You can touch them, you can talk, you can ask anything you want. And just stay in that energy when you get to the end of the guided part of the meditation and allow it to unfold. It's magical. And almost everybody who has used it has been able to do this. A few have had to do
Right.
it a couple times. Depends on where you're at, but it's designed to very gently guide you into this process.
Right. It sounds really good. Now, have you got the link for that meditation available? If you can drop it into the chat, then people can
Oh,
grab
sure.
that one as well. Now, I wanted to just mention, I mean, what you're describing, it sounds pretty straightforward, pretty easy. So I take it, in your view, anybody can do this. Is that right?
Yes, everybody can do it. You can daydream, you can do this, and everybody, as far as I know, can daydream.
Some of us do a little too much of that. Yeah. Okay, good. That's great. That's the link to the meditations.
Yeah.
And yeah, so say a little bit more about if you can daydream, you can do this. Talk a little bit about the process.
Yeah, well, what happens is we try to be quiet, we try to do what we think meditation should be like and just have nothing going on. But your mind is going to have all these things popping around. Your ego is going to be jumping in, mocking you because what are you doing? You're wasting your time, right? We all hear that. So if you just use these guided visualizations to get you in, that takes you past that part. That's the brilliance of this plan that Metatron created because now you're tuning into the visual. You're just following it. Even if you can't actually see it, you can feel it and go along with it. Then you're
Right.
in that relaxed state. So now you can open up and listen to hear what they say. And in the beginning, you're probably not going to get much. My first time, I saw a purple blob and that was it. But I was happy because I saw something. And then over time, it evolved. So match your expectations to the situation. It takes practice. You're not going to become an expert channeler overnight, but with practice and diligence, you will get there. Now, here's a funny story I'll tell on myself. After I got the 21-day book done, I was listening to some big famous channeler, and I said to Metatron, how come I can't do that? How come I haven't developed my skill there? And Metatron said, well, remember all those days you chose not to meditate? Busted. But I am grateful for what I have. So for all of us, you make the commitment, you show up, they will more than meet you halfway.
Well, and I want to say something else about that. I think that when we compare ourselves to others, it's easy to find ourselves wanting.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it well enough. I'm not, this isn't working for me. We can make up all kinds of stories and excuses, most of which are coming from our ego mind.
Yes.
And the truth is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, there are the Tony Robbins people out there who are, front and center. Everybody knows about them. There's the Oprah Winfreys. There's people like that who have huge followings. But even if you only have half a dozen people who are paying attention to you, it doesn't matter, because those people are getting a benefit from what you offer them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there may be others that you could help as well, and that will happen in time. But right now, let's just focus on the people who are in your sphere of influence. So that's kind of how I frame it for myself and for my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to suffer from imposter syndrome. I don't have that anymore. But it's more a case of it's so delicious that you always want more. But if
Of
you
course.
want more, you've got to put in the time and it will come.
Yeah.
And the thing
Right.
is, when you have that connection after you've developed it, you can just throughout the day pause and for 30 seconds, a minute, connect with your angels, have a conversation. Sometimes I'll climb in the car and I'll say, what was that you wanted to tell me? And while I'm driving, I'll get it, because they will connect with you when you have those quiet spaces, maybe in the shower, maybe driving.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the shower. I get a lot of downloads in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny. And what's also funny is often when I get out of the shower, I forget what I was getting.
Yeah. You have a way to record while you're in the shower?
No, I don't do that, but maybe that's something I should start doing. Thank you for the suggestion.
Because you'll forget. I tell
Right.
people, when you get the downloads recorded immediately, like when I'm driving, I keep my phone handy so that if something starts coming through, I can hit record and capture it. In fact, my first book, I wrote a good chunk of it while I was driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much for hands-off driving, huh?
Well, no, you just hit record and keep going. You're not watching the phone.
I know. Yeah, we're here to have fun, remember?
Yes.
And that's part of, if we're not having fun, then life is just too serious, and it really seems like there's no point.
Well, that's why the angels bring up songs so often, because they want us to have fun. In fact, sometimes they'll bring up the name game when I'm channeling, and it's like, what is that about? That's just silliness. That's not a message of any sort, other than.
Well, I don't know that one. What is that?
The name game?
Yeah.
Oh, it's that song. It was like from the 60s, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I know what. Don't even start, because I won't be able to get it out of my head.
Well, that brings up another thing. Did you know that earworms are messages from your angels? When an earworm starts, it's your angels are trying to tell you something. So if you stop and figure out what it is they're trying to tell you, the earworm goes away.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind next time I have one of those.
It's purposeful. There's nothing random. It's all purposeful.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. All right. So you said earlier that the idea of sitting still and really getting into deep meditation and going into silence was like an expert level meditation. So you're saying that it takes a lot of practice to get to that stage, whereas what we're trying to teach people here today is just about getting to that place where you're receiving messages from the divine.
Yeah, and truthfully, I'm not even trying to get to that place where I could sit in silence and say, that doesn't appeal to me. They take me on these grand adventures. In the second book that I released after the 21 day, which is little book of meditations, because Metatron gave me a whole bunch more meditations. There's one in there called Encounter with a Star. A star reaches this white hand down, lifts you up into the cosmos, and takes you on this grand adventure. And
Huh.
it's teaching you about life and death transitions. Oh my gosh, it's phenomenal. And why would you rob yourself of that experience by sitting in silence?
Right.
There is so much they will teach you. One time I went in and they taught me about the creation of the planets. And I got this whole story about how Creator took these balls of rock and mud and set them up so that they could be terraformed. And he put the consciousness of the Titans in the planets. And this is like mind blowing stuff. I don't know why I needed to know that, but I got it. I've written it down. I've shared it. So some of these things are just beyond my comprehension at this time. One time Jesus said to me, time is fungible. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting, but what am I supposed to do with that? And then over time, I got it. It made sense to me. The linear time that we experience here is not truly time, it is fungible.
So what does fungible mean?
Flexible,
Oh, okay.
which means when we as humans get into that, I don't have enough time, we are actually creating the situation of I don't have enough time. So
Right.
we can instead shift our attitude and say, I am so happy and grateful. I always have more than enough time for everything. And you will.
Mhm.
That's how
Well,
you
that's
make it.
another valid and interesting point. This whole idea of um, practicing gratitude in advance. That's a very, very powerful process that a lot of people don't understand. How can I be thankful for something I haven't got yet? And the whole point is by expressing gratitude, then the universe just kind of makes it magically appear for you.
Yeah, because you're shifting into the energy of accepting it. You're opening the door, saying,
Yeah.
come on in.
Yeah. So that second book, that was called The Little Book of Meditations.
Yeah, a little, because it's not that big. It's got 18 meditations, and 18 was purposeful. I asked Metatron which meditations, because I've got more. Which ones do you want in the book? He chose them. He put them in the order he wanted them, and I just filled in the blanks.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people will have no problem tracking that book as well if they go to the Amazon page and probably just click on your author page
Yeah,
and
it's on
find
the
out
author
all the other
page.
books you have there.
Yeah, along
Sounds
with
like you're a wealth
you
of
and I,
information.
it's along with the book you and I co-wrote.
Yeah, that was one of the ones for
It was the
the
first.
Wellness Universe. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of those. I've done four for the Wellness Universe and one for um, what was it? Find Your Voice, uh, Save Your Life, Volume 4.
Hmm.
Transcendent Men, Real Stories. I thought, well, I don't think of myself as a transcendent man, but I'll go along for the ride and see what happens.
Yeah,
That was a good experience. We ended up winning an award for that book,
that's
which
fabulous.
as well
Congratulations.
as being a bestseller. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, writing is a wonderful way of finding out the truth of who you are, I think. Because the more you write, the more you have to tap into that essence and put it down in paper in a way that other people can relate to it. It takes practice, just like anything else, actually.
Yeah.
But writing is a great practice for sure.
That reminds me of something, David. When I am meditating, I've got my hands on the keyboard, I'm typing because what comes through is fast and it's
Uh-huh.
very detailed. So I want to capture every single little detail I can so that I can, share it with others. But the thing is, sometimes it comes so fast I can't keep up with it. So guess what? You have the right to say, pause, please. They'll pause, you catch up, and then you say, okay, go, and they will. So whether you're handwriting it, you're speaking it, or you're typing it, just know that you can ask those things of them and they will accommodate you because they want you to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, this is coming too fast and furious. Um, sometimes one of the techniques that I use to channel information is sometimes I'll just get in the bath,
Mhm.
and I'll have a nice, Epsom salts bath, and I'll have a couple of candles and lights turned off, and I'll just have my iPhone with turned on record, and I'll just
Yes.
sit there and I'll just say whatever comes to me. And there's often there's some really amazing stuff that comes through, And then I have another tool that I use. It's an online program called freetranscriptions.com, and
Mhm.
it'll take what I've recorded and put it into text format. Now, it's not formatted very nicely. I have to go through and clean it up. But that's a great way to capture stuff
Yeah.
like in the moment. And yeah, it works for me. You don't have to be in the bath to do it, by the way. That's just
Yeah,
something.
anywhere. It's
Yeah,
just
you can do it
important.
anyway.
Yeah, just
I
important.
imagine you could even do that in the car. Although I like to have that silence around me. I like to not have any other distractions if I can create that. It just makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. Now, I hinted at some of the benefits of meditation when I was doing my little intro. What benefits do you know about that maybe I haven't listed?
Well, there are the medical ones you talked about, and if you do a little research, you'll find out that 75 to 90% of all doctors' visits are stress related. So all sorts
Oh
of aches
yeah,
and complaints start with stress, high
absolutely.
blood pressure, depression, anxiety, all of those things. Even skin conditions are listed.
Yeah. And most people who are going to the doctor, they may not use the word stress in their conversation with the doctor. They're going to talk about their symptoms and the problem that they're experiencing and so forth. But you're right. Most of the time, as you said, 70 to 80% of the time, the ultimate cause of that could be inflammation related to stress. So those two things work together and they impact your immune system. They do all kinds of things to the body. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Creator designed these bodies to be self-healing. So if we set them up so that they can heal, they will. And meditation, getting rid of stress, is one really super powerful way to do that.
Yep. Yep. Well, and just as you can channel information to come into you as you're meditating, you can also channel healing. You could say, all right, bring me the right kind of loving energy to help me heal my body and also provide me with appropriate information so that I can stop doing the things that have been negatively impacting my body and find things that help. That's, that you can always ask for that as part of your channeling process.
Yes, and sometimes it comes spontaneously. I've
That's
got a
right.
meditation on my YouTube channel. It's a vital force energy infusion. And in this energy flows through your entire body, lights you up. You can feel yourself tingling when you do it. It's really phenomenal. And there are several healing meditations as well in the little book of meditations. One of them, Jesus comes and washes your feet, which is
Wow.
mind blowing. Or if you don't believe in Jesus, you can substitute whatever enlightened master you want. That's not important who, but there's a deep connection there with that story. So it's phenomenal. And then there
Right.
are two where you are an infant in the arms of God who's looking down at you, and you see yourself reflected in the eyes of your creator. So profound.
They all sound amazing. And these are all in your book?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've got a shopping list.
Yeah. It's healing, it's relaxing, and it's entertaining because they put
Yeah.
it all in there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, entertaining is good, especially, the more humor you can throw in, the more people relate to it. I think, humor is like the divine connection between all beings, really.
Yes. The angels always say, "You people need to lighten up. You're too serious."
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. 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 There's a few of us that are maybe could afford to be a little more serious, but mostly I think we're biased in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
That's funny. So now you talk about also this idea of surfing the cosmic waves of transformation. Talk a little bit about that and what does that really mean? I mean, it sounds beautiful,
Mhm.
but it also sounds kind of woo woo and out there. So share a little bit how that would work and how we can connect to it, especially if we don't know how to surf.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is you don't have to actually surf. It's a metaphor. But in 2017, one of the first big messages I channeled from Metatron was about this cosmic wave of transformation that was going to be coming, shifting us all into the next evolution of humanity. Because whether you know it or not, we are in the midst of an up level. We're
Right.
going from third dimensional beingness to fourth dimensional beingness. They're recalibrating our DNA so that we will be able to shift there. So all of that's going on. And of course, we're feeling it, whether we're conscious of it or not. So the whole point, and what Metatron has been teaching now for several years, is connect with your angels, spend that time, have that faith and trust, that confidence that you can just reach out your hand and ask for help, so that when the challenges come, you won't get knocked down by this tsunami that's coming. And I thought it was all metaphorically until COVID came. And it's like, oh, I see. So the cosmic wave of transformation is partly this pandemic that is causing a lot of souls to exit the earth sooner, because a lot of them wanted to go before the big transformation happens. They didn't choose to be part of it. So they're exiting. And then the rest of us left behind will pick up the tools and move forward as we go into this new golden age, which they have dubbed Earthtopia. So that's what we're moving towards. And as soon as we hit critical mass level of light workers on board, we will then topple down the pinnacle into Earthtopia, where we will get rid of corruption, hate, and bigotry. So it's a whole new era that we're going to. And they're teasing that it's not as far away as we thought it might be. In fact,
No,
one
I
time
know.
they said, well, can you give us a kind of a date? And with a twinkle in his eye, Metatron said, well, maybe 2028. But it's even accelerating more now, so who knows?
Yeah, and I think so. I follow a lot of, let's just say, controversial political channels, and there's a lot of interesting information available on those channels that lines up perfectly with what you're talking about. And I think that to be able to just put a date on it wouldn't make any sense, because it's a transitional process. It's a
Yes.
process. It's like, okay, you're pregnant, so we know that approximately on this date you're going to give birth. But it could be earlier and it could be later, because, that's how long pregnancy takes. And so we're talking about what I call Kairos time here, as opposed to Chronos time. It takes the time it takes, but it's happening quickly, and we can see, if we open our eyes and pay attention, we can see the evidence of it happening all around the world right now. All kinds of dark structures are starting to topple and becoming more and more mainstream today. And why is that happening? Because the power of goodness, the power of love, the power of joy, the power of happiness is starting to bubble up underneath, and it's just breaking that stuff apart.
Yeah.
And so it's a very confusing time for a lot of people who are still sound asleep, and they don't really know what's going on, and they're just kind of, they get up in the morning, they go to their job, they come home at night, they eat their dinner, and they go to bed. They have this boring old routine that they're doing every day, and everything to them feels like it's compressing and getting tighter and tighter and tighter. But to those of us who are waking up and seeing what's going on, to me anyway, it feels more like an opening rather than a closing. And so I'm very excited about this. I'm really excited about this. I don't know. I hope you look like you might be excited about it too.
It's very exciting because more possibilities.
Yeah.
And when you do this work, I'm sure you feel this too, you can't help but have all this love just flowing from you, because
Right.
it's coming in from divine, and it's just going to make you explode if you don't share it with the world.
That's right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it transforms you just by being connected to the angels. And then that love goes out in geometric progression. Metatron called it a positive infection. And I said,
Yeah.
really? You want to call it an infection? Well, yeah, because it goes from one person to the next. So let's
Right.
infect the world with this love as we
Right.
all move forward.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And so there's something else that I've noticed for myself, and I'm sure other people have noticed it too. I mean, I've been doing a lot of personal growth work, and I take pride in the fact that I feel that my overall level of consciousness and awareness is pretty high. But every once in a while, my old ego mind comes back in and tries to take over, and I sometimes stumble and I fall and I do something that really afterwards I feel embarrassed about. And I suspect that other people are going through the same thing. Maybe you even have some of those little moments for yourself. The question is, what do you recommend to people when that sort of thing happens. We're not going to get rid of our ego minds, but we can learn to tame it. We can learn to transcend it. So what do you tell people when that sort of thing happens to them?
Yeah, well, a number of years ago, in fact, it's in my first book, there's a powwow between soul, higher self, and ego. Because one day they said to me, ego's not your enemy. And it's like, oh, okay. So I sat down, we did a powwow. I saw the three of us sitting cross-legged in this little triangle shape. We had a conversation. So ego comes in this trench coat, all buttoned up with a hat and, really tight, right? Serious. And soul is, like this little airy fairy thing that wants to just soar and have a good time. And poor higher self is in the middle, very confused in this tug of war between the two. So after we talked for a while and we explained to ego that really this is going to be fun, you would enjoy it if you would just lighten up a little and try these things. So her big complaint was, you're always pushing me around. I want to have a say once in a while. So we compromised. We'll listen to you as long as you lighten up and we do a little more. And it evolved from there to the place where now I'm more conscious of it when ego shows up so that I can separate it. We can have a little conversation and come to an agreement. So it's not really such a big deal. That was transformative.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And that's very similar to what I teach people as well. As I've done many of these programs and most of them are all based on my own personal experiences. So I talk about when my ego mind gets the better of me and I become aware of it. The thing that I find helps the most is if I just simply stop whatever I'm doing and simply pay attention.
Yeah.
Just listen. So what is it you're on about? What do you really want me to know that I'm not listening to? And usually just by listening, the energy level of my ego mind starts to drop down pretty quickly. And it now then becomes more of a conversation of two people and me saying, well, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. I really appreciate that you're trying to keep me safe. I am grateful to have you in my life. I'm an adult now. I can protect myself. I have powers that I didn't have when I was a kid. And I think I got this, but I really appreciate your awareness and your guidance. Usually that is enough when when I'm aware that the ego is active. But
Yeah.
like I said, sometimes I'm still, I hate to say it, it's like my consciousness level drops to a bottom level and I'm stuck in that whole ego mind crap session that I just hate. And I'm in there and I say, how the hell do I get out of this? And it's sometimes it's hard. You know what I mean?
It is, but you're not perfect. You're human. You are
Wait
evolving.
a minute.
You're getting better all the time, right? And we do this in layers. We're eternal. We're never going to get it done. It's always about more expansion and understanding of who you are. So when you get triggered, because that's what it sounds like, and we all get triggered from time to time, it's actually an opportunity to dive in and figure out what was it about that, and then you can heal whatever it was. Like I'm somebody who used to hold grudges really bad for a long time. So one day, the one my angels kept bringing it up for me because whenever they want me to work on something, suddenly it keeps popping up. So it's like this guy from 40 years ago who bullied me, who was my boss's boss, and just really pissed me off, if I can say that. And it burnt me up inside for all this time. And so finally, when they bugged me enough, I stopped and I analyzed it and I realized, oh my gosh, he did me a huge favor. It was at that time that I was just starting to assert myself to be an adult because I was in my 20s. And he was trying to bully me and keep me down, misogynistic type. So that's why it triggered me so badly. And because of him, I had to fight to move out of that disempowered state. So he actually did me this huge favor. And now I can say, okay, thank you for that. Let it go and move on.
Right. Yeah. Well, anytime you're holding a grudge, and I'm not speaking about you specifically, but anytime anyone holds a grudge, it's usually because your ego mind is attached to some specific outcome and wants to get even, wants to get revenge, wants to get justice, whatever. And the truth of the matter is, most people who trigger me have no idea that they have triggered me.
Sure.
Most of the time, they're not going out of their way to try and upset me. That's not the way most people operate. They're too busy with their own lives to think about something
Mhm.
like that. So, to hold a grudge against someone like that is kind of silly, really, because all I'm doing is saying you unconsciously did something to me, and I'm going to hold you responsible for it for the rest of your life. No, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. If I can understand that, if each of us can understand that, we can release the grudge almost immediately and come to a place of forgiveness, even though you don't have to actually talk to the other person. I can say, I forgive you for that. I understand that you weren't, trying to do anything to hurt me or anything like that. And I'm forgiving you, not because you need to be forgiven, but because I need to release this energy. So
Exactly.
that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. A simple little example of that is, being an author, you read your reviews you get on your books.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you'll get a real whiz bang. I had one where somebody said that it not enough information and you would have gotten more from a dummies book. And it's like, ouch, that stings a little bit. But then you got to take a step back and say, wow, how sad for that person that they're spending their life putting nasty comments on people's books.
Right.
What's wrong
Yeah.
in their life? And then you can let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, this is all good stuff. I mean, we have all these reflections of divinity wandering around us, and each one of us comes into contact with the other for a specific purpose. We don't necessarily know consciously what that purpose is, and we may not know immediately. We may know years later. Maybe in another lifetime we'll understand what the purpose was. But the point is, there is a purpose to it, and in some way we invite it. We may have had a contract agreement with that person in a spiritual life before we even came to this planet. Who knows? I don't fully understand it all. I don't claim to. But the thing is, when it happens for a reason. So enjoy it. Take it and live with it and grow from it and gain whatever insights about yourself that you can from it. That's what I think is really the important thing about knowing who you really are.
Yeah, and that's where you get to magical living, where instead of looking at it as something bad, it's like, oh, good, an opportunity to learn and grow some more. And then more things will keep coming.
Right. I had my ex-wife, we would often call this an AFOG, another fucking opportunity for growth, pardon my language. And we're supposed to be excited about it. But that's what it is. Every opportunity is an opportunity for growth and expansion and really increasing our awareness of who we are. What else would be the point of it, really, when you think about it?
Yeah. And each time you do that, you go up another step on your journey. There's more peace, there's more calm, there's more love, more trust, faith, and confidence because your angels are validating for you over and over the things that they tell you. And what's really cool is sometimes after you've done your meditation for a while and you're fairly connected so that you will notice when those thoughts come in that aren't yours, you recognize that's a channel, then you might even get a spontaneous download from a past life to clue you in that you've got a connection to that person. That's happened
Right,
to me several times, and it's just, wow, okay.
right, right. And so we can take the meditation piece of this and come back. And even if you choose not to channel, if you choose not to listen to specific messages coming in, one thing that you can do in any meditation is just to say, I invite a higher awareness of who and what I really am, and focus on that and see what comes forth from that kind of inquiry. And when you, like, often we have a very, very restricted and limited view of who we are. Most of us, if I ask most people, who are you? They'll say, oh, I'm Bob. Oh, thank you, Bob. And who are you? And he'll look at me funny and say, well, I'm a man. Thank you, Bob. And who are you? And just keep doing that. And,
Mhm.
this might get irritating at first, but if you're in the right space to understand where the questions are coming from, and if you ask yourself, who am I? And you start peeling away all those superficialities, eventually you come down to the essence. How long is that going to take? Well, it's going to take as long as it takes. It's like anything else. Um, and the beauty of it is, I've done this work in pairs, in triads or dyads, I guess, with other people. And I found that after about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, I get down to a place where I just don't know how to answer anymore. Because it feels like I've already said all the things that seem true in the moment. But then I start saying things like, well, I am everything. I am nothing. I am all that is. I am void. I am coming up with all kinds of weird statements that just I would never have said if you first asked me that question. And the more I say those things that seem so out there, the more true they feel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of all of this work, meditating to find out the truth of who you really are, and maybe working with angels as you do to have them help you gain that truth as well.
Yeah, they'll talk to you a lot if you let them. So just open up, and meditation is just your gateway to a deeper relationship with your soul. That's what it's all about. It's connecting with your
Beautiful.
soul, knowing who you are, and expansion. And because we're expanding so rapidly right now, it's more important than ever, which is why these books came forward.
Right. Now, you've mentioned Metatron a lot. How did you get in connection with this particular angel, and why not other angels? I'm just curious about that part of your journey.
Yeah. Well, once I started doing this work, I had a memory of when I was 4 years old talking to Jesus, which I had totally repressed. It was gone as an adult. So when I started out, Jesus was the one who showed up for me because that was the familiar. And over time, then Metatron started showing up. And at one point, I'm like, wait a minute, this energy feels the same to me. And they taught me it's the same soul.
Mhm.
Metatron sits at the right hand of God. Metatron has come to earth multiple times as spiritual teachers of love and light. So he was Mohammed, he was Yogananda, he was Jesus, and any number of other spiritual teachers, as well as normal, regular people you probably wouldn't notice, because Metatron was given the task of overseeing humanity, overseeing the Akashic records. So, in order to understand us better, he periodically incarnates to have that experience. So, because my work is in the Akashic records, it was very natural for Metatron to show up. And I like his energy, so I will call on him before I would call on somebody else. He's just become my BFF. We hang out together. But
That's
that doesn't
great.
mean everybody else can't call on Metatron too. In fact, when they read the book, I think they start to feel that closeness with Metatron. So I notice a lot of people in the Facebook group are connecting with Metatron.
Right. Well,
And
I
that
think it's
transformer thing?
beautiful. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate here and say, well, how do you know that's true and not just something you're making up?
Well, they told me and I trust them. But as I've studied and I've looked at other people's stuff, I've actually found a couple of other instances of people who've come to that same conclusion. And I love that because, yeah, you get that and you wonder, am I just nuts? Am I making all this stuff up? But then you find somebody else has said it, or I'll hear somebody else's channel, and some of the phrases they use are exactly what I've heard in one of my channels. So we get that little bit of validation, which our ego needs. Our soul doesn't need it.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really beautiful. Um, and it's interesting that you talk about Jesus as well as Metatron. I mean, I didn't realize that they were the same energy. That's a new piece of information. I'm going to have to kind of sit with that for a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, but I've always believed in the teachings of Jesus. I think that everything that I've heard about Jesus, about what he has said and done and so forth, really resonates for me. All of it seems to come from a place of love, and it doesn't come from a place of wanting to be worshipped or anything like that. Because I mean, one of the key messages that Jesus said, which may have come from Metatron, I'm sure, is these things and more will you also do.
Hmm.
And I remember him saying that, and I'm thinking, okay, so I'm still waiting to do some of those things. Is it going to happen in this life, or am I going to pass on and do it in another life? But I think that's a very beautiful and hopeful statement. And what Jesus does there is he says, every one of us Every single being on this planet has the same capabilities he does or did. And all we have to do is want it. All we have to do is invite it in. And he talks about the kingdom of heaven within. So I think it's a beautiful message. And so what you're telling me is very much in alignment with that.
Yeah, this is all about oneness. We are all one with Creator. And
Right.
so our journey is we were separated, and through each lifetime, we're working on getting closer, getting back to that oneness. And the
Yeah.
really cool parallel is when you have that powwow with your higher self, soul, and ego, you come into oneness. So it starts there, and then it expands out.
A little powwow.
Yeah.
Higher self, soul, and ego. Great. Let me just set that up.
Yeah, so that you can get that with my first book. It's all in there. And then there's a meditation that's recorded, so if you want to hear it as opposed to read it, you can have that too. Because all the stuff they give me, I'm just passing it on.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is beautiful, and I want to make sure we haven't missed anything here because we've covered a lot of ground really quickly here.
While you're
Uh,
doing that, I just want to throw one thought out.
sure.
We're in a time where we're being asked to question everything. So what I tell you is what I believe is true today. It could change tomorrow. I will share it with you if it changes. But question everything no matter who you hear it from. If it feels true for you, use it. Like there are
Mhm.
a lot of people out there telling you you've got to protect yourself from all these dark energies. I don't feel I need to protect myself because I'm holding Metatron's hand all the time. He's not letting go. Why do I need to be protected? I've got it. But
Right.
if you feel you need to be protected, then you do those things. So what's true for you might be different for somebody else. And that's important as we're all stepping into our sovereignty as souls.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great reminder, of course. And the way I view it is from our soul perspective. If we can just stay connected to our true spiritual nature, I think we all understand that there is a concept of absolute truth. But because we also have to deal with an ego mind, sometimes the ego might filter this truth in a way that says, well, are you really sure that's true? And I know that that's what's happening for me. I know that's what's happening for me. So I often have to kind of let my ego mind quiet down and get out of the way. And then I have to feel into the energy.
Yeah.
So usually there's something about the way the energy vibrates in my body that lets me know this is truth, you know. And even though my ego mind says, that's not true, you know. So my ego mind might have a good reason for me to be, concerned about something. But I think ultimately, if I can trust my soul more and let my ego mind set aside, then I'm going to be more connected to truth more of the time, you know. And as you say, I think we also have to be aware of potential dark energies out there that have other, I don't know, agendas. That might be the way to put it. It's not necessarily that they're bad or evil. It's just that they have a different agenda that is kind of contrary to what our overall agenda is. Because if everything is all that is, well, all that is, I'm afraid, has to include that dark energy too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so we have to be we have to let love bubble through and infuse everything.
Yeah, Creator says, you are perfect, magnificent, brilliant, and resplendent right now. Tomorrow you'll be better. And that's every single soul. So that
Right.
means even those people we don't like, they're still perfect according to Creator.
Of
So
course.
if we can respect and love them as souls, forget about the other stuff. We don't have to interact with them,
That's right.
right? But we can just know that that's who they are. And when we get to that point where we see everybody as souls, that's when we're going to be in Earthtopia.
Nice. I like it. Beautiful. So Deborah, I guess what I'd like to do, I mean, we seem to be wrapping up here now. I'd like to have you just, if you have some final words you'd like to share before I close out.
Yeah, I think that we're in a time now where we're way past getting over the self-loathing, the lack of self-esteem. It's time to really truly believe When Creator says you're perfect, magnificent, brilliant, and resplendent, you are. Accept it. Love yourself, because when you do that, when you give that love to yourself, it will flow out of you to others automatically. It's a beautiful experience. And I say that from having been someone who had self-esteem that was in the basement. I didn't even know what it meant to love yourself. But it's
Right.
when you interact with angels, Creator, Metatron, it changes you. It opens you up. Your heart chakra expands. Life is so much sweeter and magical. And I want that for everybody. It's so wonderful. It's soul nirvana. And I'm going to keep telling you about it. And maybe you'll listen and try it. But the 21-day meditation challenge will help you get there faster.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And one of the things that you just said, I just really resonate with. You do have to love yourself first. Because if you don't, then it's really, really difficult to love other people, at least from an authentic place of spiritual love.
Yeah.
So that's really, really powerful. And this is why Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, you got to love yourself first, and then you can love your neighbor. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Debbie, for being here. It's been Deborah. I just
Thank
said
you.
Debbie. You probably haven't heard that for a while, and I'm sorry for misspeaking. But anyway, thank you, Deborah, for being here. I really appreciate your energy. You're obvious, just full of love and brilliance, and so I'm grateful to have you here on the show again.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a delight.
Right. Well, just a reminder to everybody, thank you for watching today's program. Remember, you can catch the recording of this and every other show on my website at lifemasterytv.com, life-mastery-tv.com. Remember, meditation is something that everyone can do to improve physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It can be done anywhere, doesn't require any special equipment, and there are countless methods and styles, each with its own set of strengths and benefits. Pick up a copy of Debra's book. What's that called again? I'm sorry. The Path to Hearing Angels. There you go. The Path to Hearing Angels and Guides, 21 Days of Meditation. So grab a copy of that and really make use of it in your life. And hopefully you'll start to see some immediate changes. Meanwhile, I invite you to remember the Life Mastery mantra and practice it every day. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you again next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.